There's no mom like you, and in this picture I kind of see her when she was in the hospital.
She loved motherhood, and she and Sophie were extremely bonded. I mean, everything that Joan did, she had Sophie with her, and Sophie slept with us for the first 2 years. I never really thought I'd be a father. It's been quite the experience, quite the ride. It's a learning curve, but I love it. They were kind of telling us, you know, she's severe preeclampsia, but don't worry, because the cure for preeclampsia is delivery. So we're going to manage this pregnancy a little bit more. Her blood pressure's at 172/95. It's very elevated. There was not a whole lot of in-depth discussions around preeclampsia and what that could be. Everything was, if the baby's delivered, everything's going to be fine, because that's the cure for it. 48 hours later, after her being admitted, they, again, did a C-section on her. You know, at that point, it's like the baby's out, your wife's going to be fine. She was not discharged by the high-risk doctor that had admitted her to the hospital. She was discharged by the third doctor, if you will. There was no discussion with the high-risk doctor about any of this, and she was sent home. There was no mention of any complications from preeclampsia after the birth. Here we are 48 hours after delivery. She's had multiple pregnancies. She's over 42. She's diabetic. She'd had in vitro fertilization. She'd had miscarriage. She'd had the issues with potassium. She had some family history behind her. So there were probably 7 or 8 red flags that should have been considered. Over the course of the next 48 hours, she was experiencing difficulties with breathing, which we kind of passed off to, you know, she'd put on a lot of weight. She'd had the C-section. Her breasts were swollen, you know, from lactation. We were just looking at all these signs as like, it's just normal because you've been slightly eviscerated and everything else. So what we didn't know is that she was having issues. We were discharged on a Sunday. That Tuesday, I had gone back to work in the morning. She had gone to the doctor with her brother, with Sophie. She was experiencing a lot of shortness of breath at that point. So we just basically he got her back home and put her to rest. And I came home from work that afternoon. I'm exhausted, so I go to bed at around 11, and she wakes me up at about 12:15, and she's like, I need your help. And I'm like, well, what's the problem? She goes, I can't breathe. And to me, it looked like she's hyperventilating. She's just getting very anxious, and she's getting very excited, you know. She hadn't had a lot of sleep. She was having a lot of issues, and I just was like, she's hyperventilating. So my job is to calm her down. So there's no warning bells going off in my head at this point. I'm not thinking I need to call 911 immediately. I'm not thinking I need to put her in the car and take her to the hospital, which is literally 5-7 minutes from here. She is devolving rapidly in front of me. She's, you know, asking for cups of water. She's asking for cups of ice, and she's dumping it over her head. I mean, her arms are just, you know, this. At that point, I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on. So I called 911. And in the span of that call to them arriving here was probably about 7 minutes. She went from standing to sitting to laying on the floor to not breathing. The last thing she said to me was, I love you. They basically put her on the board, took her out of the house, and kept working on her. It took them 25 minutes to establish a pulse. Over the course of 2.5 weeks, that's how long she stayed with us. I think I said, I'm sorry to you every single day. You trust what the experts are telling you. You trust that the people you're dealing with are telling you everything you need to know. You trust that they're being honest with you. If there was something to be concerned with after the delivery, because the cure for preeclampsia is delivery, you're out of the woods at this point, and nobody's telling me otherwise at that point. So everything that happened after it, you blame yourself for because you're not paying attention. Should I have gone on and looked up preeclampsia on the web? Because, hey, you know, the internet's a great thing now. Should I have looked it up and been aware of it? Would have, should have, could have thing. Everybody says, well, don't blame yourself, but, you know, that's easy to say. It's another thing to be the individual that was the one witnessing everything that happened here and supposed to be the protector of the family. Why not be taught about help? Why not be taught about some of the risks that are associated with what you're currently experiencing? You know, a cancer patient certainly knows what their risks are when they start taking chemotherapy. They know what they're in for the long haul. Preeclampsia, you know, if it's been debunked that delivery is the cure, be honest about it, you know? You know, the ending doesn't change. There's never a happy moment that comes from it. But if somebody else can live because they've heard this story and understands, you know, what preeclampsia is and takes it a little bit more seriously when talking to their patients, or as a patient, they understand what the symptoms are and they're not afraid to speak up, then something comes from this. And that's what I hope.